Woo, woo. Good evening. Welcome back to another episode of the Adults Table. I'm your buddy, Rabbi Mike.
That's right. And I am Ryan, your friendly neighborhood atheist.
And this show, if it's your first time or not your first time, is to equip you with tools that will lead to a better understanding of sacred texts and more.
Yes, and I will be your backseat driver tonight so you can focus on the road and the reinvention of Shabbat.
Well, let's get this show on the road.
All right, let's hit some buttons and keep it moving.
Mm.
The Adults Table. Theological Conversations Uncensored.
What's
Hello.
up, people? Tonight, we are going to be talking about Shabbat. We're going to be talking about the Sabbath and the idea, basically, that when you look at the texts explaining Shabbat or the Sabbath in the Torah and in the Tanakh, they are inconsistent, which means that we are at a second level adaptation here. It means there's something that came before it. And so, what we're going to do tonight is we're going to analyze those second level adaptations, see how they're different, and then we're going to speculate as to where it might have come from and then how it's going to go. So, tonight we are going to put Shabbat on the table.
Ooh,
What we put on the table?
yeah, put it on the Shabbat on the table. I like.
Rad. Let's share some screeny without a bar. There we go. That is rad.
Gorgeous.
So, as it is gorgeous. So, as your friendly neighborhood rabbi, what I've done for you is I have provided you with, just as we look at those pillars that we did in terms of motif adaptation, where we'd have all the different texts and we'd say this is what this was or whatever it is, those literary stations. I've divided for you the most important texts that we're going to talk about. Basically, there's going to be three big Torah texts that we're going to talk about, and then there's going to be two Tanakh texts that are later. And I'm going to give you some like hints as to like what things are about. Typically, when I teach this class, there's a little bit more question answer sort of thing, but because of this platform, I'm going to be speaking a little bit more, and so it's not going to be a hey, what do you think sort of thing, but
What, I'm
not that I
not
don't
really
care
going to
what you think.
backseat drive here?
Yeah, I want you to share what your thoughts are, but I'm not going to be like, anybody have any questions or that sort of stuff. So I'm going to I know, always, right? I'm going to get us going. And basically, what I'm going to do is, and Ryan, if you would, as always, do us the honor of reading these wonderful texts, what I'm going to do is go through the big texts that Judaism knows in terms of that are about Shabbat, okay? And the things that we're used to reading, the things that come up in our liturgy, things that most Jews would know, and then and I think other Christians would know these too, right? Christians would know these too because some of them show up in the Decalogues and other things like that, and so the Sabbath has a certainly a relationship, a very different relationship, but they're within Christianity as well. So this is hopefully just as relevant. But the point is basically to look at these texts where you've been looking at texts about Shabbat or the Sabbath and thinking like, oh, that's fine. But what we're going to do is Sabbath is over, my friend Dan. So yeah, Sabbath ended last night.
Christian
Christian
Sabbath
Sabbath,
is
right.
today, but
You're
Jewish
right.
Sabbath is Saturday.
Well, then, yeah, sure, go for it. I mean, my Sabbath ended last night. I don't know if yours ends at sundown or how that works, but
That's a good guy.
I don't
We
know
were
how
never
Sunday
very
works. I don't know. All I
I
know
don't know
is
how
like
Sunday works
I
either,
don't know how
Rabbi
Sunday works.
Mike.
I I don't know how that works. All I know is there's some stuff that's closed and you
Right.
can't buy liquor some places, and that's it. I don't know when it ends. So I've got a good 24 hours of Friday night to Saturday night, and that's it.
That's all you know.
But anyway,
All you need to
so yeah,
know.
sure. So yes, so let's start. Um, we'll actually start. We won't start in order. We'll start up here with Exodus 31. And this is one of the explanations as to the reason and creation of Shabbat. So Exodus, we'll start at Exodus 31:12. We'll go through 17. Ryan, if you would read for us Exodus 31.
Sure. Okay. And Yahweh said to Moses, "Speak to the Israelite people and say, Nevertheless, you must keep my Sabbaths, for this is a sign between me and you throughout the ages, that you may know that I, Yahweh, have sanctified you. You shall keep the Sabbath for it is holy for you. He who profanes it shall be put to death. Whoever does work on it, that person shall be cut off from among his kin. 6 days may work be done, but on the seventh day there should be a Sabbath of complete rest, holy to Yahweh. Whoever does work on the Sabbath day shall be put to death. The Israelite people shall keep the Sabbath, observing the Sabbath throughout the ages as a covenant for all time. It shall be a sign for all time between me and the people of Israel. For in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he ceased from work and was refreshed." Oh, he was
Okay.
refreshed.
Yes, he was all refreshed.
Refreshed.
Okay. The reason why I want to start with this one is because it's really kind of a mess. There's a lot going on here. And it looks very sort of put together, like meshed together. Um, so in the beginning here, Yahweh is saying, keep my Sabbaths, right? Keep the Shabbat. It is a sign between me and you throughout the ages that I've made you holy. In other words, in this particular verse, God is telling the Israelites the way that my people will know that they're mine is we're the only ones who do Shabbat. Everybody else does market day and other stuff on Saturday. We do this. And then it goes into the punishment, right? Of if you don't do this, you're put to death, which is like extreme for if you're doing work on a day of rest, you're put to death. But if we consider the reasoning here, if you decide to do work on a day that commits you to your God, then yeah, that's the ultimate insult, basically. It's like this day is the sign that you're an Israelite. And if you do work on it, you're dead. Dead to me,
Mm,
right? Cut off
dead
from
to
your
me.
kin and dead, right?
So did it
And
actually
yeah, go
mean
ahead.
death, or just like,
Yes.
we're cutting you
Yes.
off? Oh, it was like
No, it was
not.
death. I mean,
it
this is one of the, I
was
mean, it was
death.
death. It was death. I mean, here's the thing. When people like read the Decalogue and they're like, hey, remember, thou shalt not kill. Like, first of all, it's thou shalt not murder. And here's some great verses where God says, we're going to kill you. And it's fine.
It's
Like, so don't
okay.
say thou shalt not kill. Like, I'm decided if you do this, I'm going to kill you. Or your people around you are going to kill you, right? He's instructed other Israelites to murder you if you break the. I mean, it's pretty rough, I got to say. But
I
it
guess
gets the
it's the
point across.
sign. It's the
It
sign
gets
that
the point across.
you're
That's
not one
right.
of us.
You're not
Like,
a Yahwist, right?
something's up with you.
And then it goes into a little bit of the 6th day, 7th day, right? And then it goes into
Mm.
like throughout covenant for all time. The verse 15 seems very out of place. If you remove it, right, and this is what we do. We did this for Rock Water, right, where we would pull verses out and we
Right.
would say, does it work without it? Or we'd switch them, right? If we
Mm-hmm.
pull verse 15 out and it says, you shall keep the Sabbath, it's holy to you, that person shall be cut off from his king. The Israelite people shall keep the Sabbath, observing the covenant. It all makes a lot more sense. 15, we will see, comes from a different idea of Shabbat and seems like a redactor may have tried to sort of um, hastily or sloppily put that in there because this isn't about creation. This is about the sign. This is about the covenant. This doesn't mention, it's just sort of a throwaway comment. And we're going to see that 10 chapters before that, really where that comes from. So
Okay.
this particular one, it's okay, but it's like whatever. But either way, I've written in the left covenant. It's about a sign. It's not just a sign. It's a covenant agreement, a contract that says if you keep the Sabbath, that means you're one of my people. If you
Right.
break the Sabbath, you're not. And if you say you're one of mine and you break the Sabbath, the punishment's death because you're breaking all of that stuff. Pretty crazy. Pretty crazy.
It's pretty rough.
It is pretty rough. So let's go to the ones that's not as rough. Okay, we're gonna scroll down to Exodus 20, um, Exodus 28 through 11. Okay,
Okay. You want me to read
um,
that?
read that one for me. This comes from one of the Decalogues.
Remember the Sabbath day and sanctify it. 6 days you shall bear labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath of Yahweh your God. You shall not do any work. You, your son or daughter, your male or female slave, or your cattle, or the stranger who is within your settlements. For in 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth and sea and all that is in them. He rested on the seventh day. Therefore Yahweh blessed the Sabbath day and sanctified it.
Okay, very clear, right? 6 days you work because 6 days I worked. Seventh day you rest because seventh day I rest. We are emulating the deity here. The reason why
Mm-hmm.
we do Shabbat is to emulate God's behavior. God did all this work, so we're going to do all that work. And then on Sunday or Saturday for us, right, we're going to rest because that day, where according to legend, God rested and sanctified that day, we're not going to work. Our kids aren't going to work. Our slaves aren't going to work. And our animals aren't going to work.
Damn. They
Cattle's
get
not going to
vacation
work.
time.
Right. They're just going to be like, you always rest a little bit, 24 hours, whatever.
Little
And then
margarita in the field.
a little margarita. Listen, however you celebrate your Sabbath day is up to you.
Okay.
But, but, and also the stranger who's with you in your settlements. In other words, if you have a guest in your community, don't make them do anything. That's the day of rest for everybody. It's sort of this universal, like, emulation. Like, we're not going to make you work on our day because we're
Mm.
emulating our God. And so we're not going to make you work. Today's a holy day for us. So this is very clearly Exodus 20, 8 through 11, is about emulating creation, emulating God through the creation story. Now, you may be asking, or you may not, because you're not a nerd, or you may be wondering, like you're a nerd, why is Genesis not in this list? Genesis 1 never mentions Shabbat by name, never mentions Sabbath, never mentions it. So it's not an explicit, obviously it was used and became that, but like it doesn't mention Shabbat the term, right? Shabbat and Sabbath
Right.
at all. So later we have this. So that's emulating your God. That's because God did this creation, you're going to do it. So that's a great motivation, right? Is I'm going to keep Shabbat because my God kept Shabbat.
Yeah. I want to do what
Three,
he
ch- no, right, exactly. It sounds nice, right? 3 chapters
calls for
later,
followers.
we have another explanation for Shabbat. And this is another sort of Decalogue that's not typically spoken about. We've got the Decalogue in Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy 5. This one is like another one, a bunch of laws that are given at Sinai. This one I call a labor law because it is very, very secular. So if you read Exodus 23, we'll
Okay.
see what you think. Go for it.
Okay. 6 years you shall sow your land and gather in its yield, but in the seventh you shall let it rest and lie fallow. Let the needy among your people eat of it, and what they leave let the wild beasts eat. You shall do the same with your vineyards and your olive groves. 6 days you shall do your work, but on the seventh day you shall cease from labor, in order that your ox, your ass may rest, and that your bondman and the stranger may be refreshed. Yeah, that has a different like tone to it, a completely
Nothing
different.
about God,
Right.
nothing about holiness,
It's like a
nothing
nature,
about
more nature and
sanctity. It's
mhm.
just let it rest. Um, do your work,
Be easy,
but
baby.
yeah, there's nothing religious about this, right? And if you look at um, some of the other commandments in Exodus 23, it's very much like that. It doesn't mention God a lot, right? It's talking
Mhm.
about don't take bribes, don't subvert the needy. When you see your enemy's donkey, um, don't you got to help him pick it up, even though he's a jerk or whatever it is. Um, be on guard. There's a festival. Like it's not particularly religious. It's a very sort of secular labor law. Is that we're going to not just the top part is about jubilee a little bit in terms of 6 years you sow your land and you gather its yield. On the seventh year you let it rest. There's actually
Mm,
agricultural evidence to say that that is necessary, and that there is sort of an unofficial jubilee that farmers do and gardeners do. You have to let
right.
the land rest, um,
Recharge the
and
nutrients,
recharge.
etc. Right.
Exactly. So this is about nature, and so we're following the nature idea of how we do agricultural stuff, and then it says 6 days shall you do your work, but on the seventh day you're going to rest, so that your ox and your ass may rest, and your bondman and stranger may be refreshed. In other words, your business, keep your business together. Let them rest so that
Mm,
on Sunday or Monday, whatever it is, you get up and you start working again. Like this is very different from 3 chapters before, where they talk about Yahweh, they talk about God, they talk about God rested, they talk about blessings, they talk about sanctification. This doesn't say anything about that, but
mm-mm.
it's about Shabbat. It's about
And I like how it
um,
even says like let the needy people like
yeah,
eat, I guess, whatever's left in the field from what you didn't get from the other 6 days of work, I'm guessing?
yes. So yes,
So,
so the yeah.
I sorry, so
Go
would
ahead.
that mean that, like, if they were hungry on that day, even though you're not supposed to work, if they were hungry, they could it was okay if they were out there, like, working, but they're actually just
Yes,
grubbing. They grubbing
yes.
down.
So
Is that what it's saying?
yes. So leaving the corners of your field is like a big thing in Judaism and agriculture. You while you're actually doing your stuff throughout the year, you leave the corners open. Like you pick everything and then you leave the corners for the needy to come in and
Mm,
take what they want. So in that sense, it makes sense that um, you're gonna take all your stuff at the end of the 6 years, but um, you don't just take you let it rest, and that way people can come in, they can eat it, their animals can eat it, they can, the vineyards and the olive groves, because you're just letting your land rest. So who cares, right? Let them do
Right.
whatever they want to do, and you give back every 6 years to the community. Be like, hey, I'm not doing anything with this land for a year. Go for it. Take whatever you want. Um, and so yeah, there is a sort of a understanding of the community aspect to that. But again, nothing religious about that. Just very sort of
Taking care of one
you know,
another.
yeah,
Communal.
community wise sort of thing. Like, but when you get down to verse 12, it's you got to rest, and the things that make you money have to rest. Your ox and your ass and everything. Like, there's a law that you cannot work 7 days a week.
Mm.
This is it, Exodus 23, and here's why. Like, and here's what to do, in that way. So far, right? When we start with Exodus 20, we have emulating the deity through creation. And then right after it, we have this very secular labor law as to, like, you know, just rest, let everybody rest so that we can get back to work. Nothing to do with. And so that dichotomy right there is really fascinating to me. Just 3 chapters away from one another.
Right.
So, if anyone says it's streamlined, they haven't read this stuff, because this is clearly one author, this is clearly another author, and it's been smushed together. Um,
Yeah. I'd love to know.
yeah, wouldn't we all,
Wouldn't
right?
we all?
So, then, right, we've got Exodus 20 and Exodus 23. If we jump back up, Exodus 31, so this is the third explanation of Shabbat in one book, right? One
Okay.
is three
Yeah.
chapters away, one's 11 chapters away, or 8 chapters away.
Dang.
So you've got creation, labor law, and then you've got, all of a sudden, wait a minute, here's why we do Shabbat. It's a covenant, it's a sign, and it doesn't erase this stuff. It's there. Nobody got rid of it.
Right.
It's just, and now it means this, but hopefully you can tell from what I'm talking about. Like, it doesn't say and you should do this, or you should do this. It's, this is what you do. Like, this is why we celebrate Shabbat. Couldn't be more clear. Like, one is emulation, one is a covenant, and one is, to do your business. It doesn't have any particular relationship with the other ones, right? Because you don't just start in Exodus 20 and say, here's why we do Shabbat. God rested. And later, it's also a sign, I
It's
guess.
right. Let me add
And
to that.
right. No,
With my
this is a
pen.
mess, basically. Yes, exactly. This is a mess. Now we're really going to throw a wrench in it, and we're going to
Uh-oh.
look at Deuteronomy 5. And remember, this is
Uh-oh.
depending on what you view as terms of Decalogue, it's either the second version of the Decalogue, or if you include 23, which I do, it's the third version of the Decalogue. So here's Shabbat from the Deuteronomist.
Okay, so the redemption one.
Yep.
Observe the Sabbath and keep it holy as Yahweh your God has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath of Yahweh your God. You shall not do any work. You, your son or your daughter, your male or your female slave, your ox or your ass, or any of your cattle. I don't know why I want to laugh when it says ass, but I really do. Or the
It's
stranger in your
because we're children.
settlements. I really am a
Because
child.
we're children. We're children.
So that your male and female slave may rest as you do. Remember that you were a slave in the land of Egypt, and Yahweh your God freed you from there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, Yahweh your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. Wowsies. Boy, he really started expanding on that one.
It's not an expansion. It's a totally different reason. It's
Well, yeah.
here's why you here's why you celebrate Shabbat. because you
Yeah,
got out of Egypt.
right. I see. Yeah. Now
See what I'm
it's
saying? Like,
now it's Egypt, whereas
now
before
it's
it's
Egypt. Now it's about
yeah,
Egypt. Remember, you were a slave.
interesting.
Therefore, God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath day. Nothing to do with creation, nothing to do with emulating, nothing to do with whatever it is. It's about the Exodus story. It's about redemption. This is
Oh,
why we do Shabbat, right?
this is why we do
We
it.
do it.
This
This
is why
is
we
why we
do it.
Shabbat. All right. Um, so yeah, we're children. It's fantastic. So yes, it has this part in it, right? The you labor and then you don't. And here's who doesn't work, right? Very similar to the labor law,
Yeah.
right? We see that, and we see a little bit in the same of
Yeah.
Exodus 20,
Specific with
right? Your
who
son, your
has to.
daughter. But here's where it turns, right? For here, right? Here's why. 6 days Yahweh made heaven and earth. Therefore, Yahweh blessed and sanctified it. Here it says, remember you were a slave in Egypt. God freed you. Therefore, that's why God's commanded you to observe the Sabbath. Completely different reason.
Yowzas.
And then this one is just no reason. Just it's a good idea. Like it's good. I think it's a good idea to
Yeah.
rest.
Yeah. It's
We'll
good for
we'll
the
chill.
community,
It's
Chill
good.
out.
Yeah, it's good for everybody. I think it's good for everybody. And then you get this one, right? Which is it's a sign, and let me show you how sign it is. I'm gonna kill you if you don't do it.
Right.
None of them
I
say that.
saw the sign. If you don't follow
Right.
along, you're done.
I'll kill you. All right. Um, so here we have in the Torah one, two, three, four different reasons as to why Shabbat is a thing and why we do Shabbat.
Oh
That's
man.
crazy. That's crazy. First of
Yeah,
all,
that makes me wonder just like how many different like why were there so many ideas of this same
right?
thing, you know what I'm
See, now we're
saying?
thinking. We're thinking at the adults
Aha.
table. That's aha. That is what we should be thinking. Why did they? These are not original interpretations, right? It's most likely not that Exodus, whatever was written, and someone was like, nah, we'll do this. There was a concept of Shabbat that needed to be infused into Israelite culture for a reason. They needed a reason to do Shabbat. And all these authors gave it a shot, right? They were
Gave it a
like, this
shot
is
at
a good
Shabbat.
idea. Shot at Shabbat. Uh, this was their shot. And they're all
Yeah,
different.
Dandy has the right idea. I want the one that doesn't kill me. That's the Shabbat I want.
That is fair. It's totally fair. The one where you don't break it and and you don't die.
No bad
Um,
consequences. I'm okay with that
very good.
Shabbat.
I will tell you that the closest like Jewish liturgy has come to that is looking at Exodus 20 and Deuteronomy 5. These first words are different, right?
Mhm.
You are supposed to observe. Another word for it is to guard the Sabbath day, right? Sometimes we see you like observe it, but also like keep it there, right? You guard the Sabbath day. And then another one is you remember it, right? That's totally
Mhm.
different. To remember the
It's
Sabbath
like
day because God
invoking a
did this.
different kind of, I
Right.
don't know, emotion or something.
Very different verbs, right? A very different
Mhm.
impetus for you to what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
And so in liturgy, we see them mixed together. We see this as the Hebrew word shamor v'zachor. So shamor v'zachor, which is guard and remember or observe and remember, is how Jews have put this together and say, what do you do with the Sabbath? Shamor v'zachor. We observe it and we remember. That's about as close as we've gotten to like putting these together. Um, because the rest you really can't get around. But the closest ones are these two decalogues, right? One, I mean, if we think back to our, um, to our understanding of authorship, we know that the book of Deuteronomy was supposed to stand alone. It was not supposed to stand with um, these other books. It was added much later. And so, of course, they redid the Decalogue from Exodus because you weren't supposed to have read the one from Exodus. And so they didn't care. They were like, this is going to be Sabbath. Hooray, we did it, right? They didn't know, I'm sure they did, that Exodus has 3 explanations for Shabbat. And they were like, well, no one's going to read that anyway. Ours is going to be the
So this one's
best
going to
book.
be perfect.
So
I
this is
love
going to
it.
be fine. So we know how that happened, right? We understand how that happened. How this happened, where there's 3 in one book, is a mess. And they're not even close. They're all different reasons. Creation, covenant, labor law. All different reasons. Um,
Hmm.
the other ones that I'm going to mention just briefly before we get into the nitty-gritty as to perhaps what happened before is two little mentions that are a repetition of what we've seen before in the prophetic works. These are much later works. So they are a covenant, like we've seen in Exodus 31, and a sign, as we've seen also in Exodus 31, but a little bit different. So if you want to read Isaiah 56, I think this is Deutero Isaiah, the third Isaiah. So let's see what he had to say about it.
Okie doke. For thus
Yeah.
said Yahweh, as for the eunuchs who keep my Sabbaths, who have chosen what I desire and hold fast to my covenant, I will give them in my house and within my walls a monument and a name, better than sons or daughters. I will give them an everlasting name which shall not perish. As for foreigners who attach themselves to Yahweh, to minister to him and to love the name of Yahweh, to be his servants, all who keep the Sabbath and do not profane it, and who hold fast to my covenant, I will bring them to my sacred mount and let them rejoice in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and sacrifices shall be welcome on my altar, for my house shall be called a house of prayer for all peoples. Thus declares Yahweh God, who gathers the dispersed of Israel. I will gather still more to those already gathered.
Right. So we're
Wowsies, that's
seeing,
nice. Sounds like he's being very generous.
yeah, we're seeing that, like, not only is the Sabbath a sign of my people, but it can be yours too if you sign up today, and
Right.
like,
You too can
you
have
know,
this covenant.
are you a eunuch who wants to keep the Sabbath? Well, then, this is my
Call
guy,
1-800.
That's right. That's right. I'm thinking of the KG Wentworth, like,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah,
and I
877.
need
Eunuch
Shabbat
now.
now. Call
I need
JG Wentworth.
877 Shabbat
And
now.
again, Shabbat now. So remember, Isaiah
Oh,
is this
God.
prophet. He's supposed to be sitting on the corner, like yelling this stuff out, right? That's how you're supposed to be a prophet in this way, right? And so you're like, hey, this is why we do Shabbat. You should. I know, right, Jason? They're the best. They're the best commercials. Um, right? And it's saying like, hey, for the strangers, right, who are going to attach yourself to Yahweh. So it's at this point we've moved away from the tribal aspect of the Israelites and the Yahwist, right? Now it's more religious, right? In terms of people from out there who want to worship me also. It's not just about bloodline anymore, right? That's fine too. If you keep my Sabbath, that's part of being part of my covenant, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
I'll bring you in, we'll rejoice, we'll party, great, awesome. Um, and obviously there's more to it, but it's like, look, if you're feeling Yahweh, come
If
party
you're
with us on
feeling
Shabbat.
my
If you're
way,
if you're
you can get
feeling
it
my way,
Yahweh.
Yahweh or the highway, right?
Exactly.
Then come party with us, Isaiah says. And the idea is the first thing you have to know is Shabbat. That's what it means to be one of us. You want to be one of us, keep Shabbat. And if you do, here's our offers, right? I'll bring you to that sacred mount, right? Door number 3, right? Tell them what
What's
we've
behind
won,
mount number
right?
3?
The burnt offerings shall be welcome on my altar. Woo!
Right.
You win a prize. Very funny, very cool. So that's,
Yeah.
again, it echoes one idea, right, of this in terms of Exodus 31, the covenant of it. It echoes this. So it is possible that this particular author of Isaiah was aware of this author of Exodus 31 and said, right, this makes sense. This is who we are. Let's do that and let's continue on to that. So that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get my buddy Ezekiel, another late text, and he's got some stuff to say about Shabbat.
Damn. Now
Yeah, man.
he's got some stuff thrown there
He's
about
got some stuff to say about
want
Shabbat.
me to read that one?
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Prophets are not
More
prophets do not have brevity. Sorry.
That's all right. So,
Yeah.
wait, do I have to say this in a certain manner? Do I need to get a little emotional into it? Do I have to
For
be like one
Ezekiel,
of
I
y'all?
don't know what the Ezekiel voice is, but no, I don't think so.
I don't know what the Ezekiel voice is either. Okay.
Yeah.
Moreover, I gave them my Sabbaths to serve as a sign between me and them, that they might know that it is I, Yahweh, who sanctifies them. But the house of Israel rebelled against me in the wilderness. They did not follow my laws, and they rejected my rules, by the pursuit of which a man shall live, and they grossly desecrated my Sabbaths. Then I thought to pour out my fury upon them in the wilderness, and to make an end of them. But I acted for the sake of my name, that it might not be profaned in the sight of the nations before whose eyes I had led them out. Oh, don't want to do that.
I
However,
mean, it's really like, if you read this, it's like, I thought about destroying them, but it would mess up my name, like
right. I didn't want
I
right.
did
I don't
this
want to
for
mess up
me.
my
This was
own
for me.
reputation.
Let's
Exactly,
be
dude.
honest. I saved
Yes.
you guys from me, you know. No big
So
deal, you know.
selfish.
I
Oh,
know.
gotta love it. Gotta love
And
Yahweh.
then he
Okay.
goes, however, right?
However,
Right?
I swore to them in the wilderness that I would not bring them into the land flowing with milk and honey, the fairest of all lands, which I had assigned to them. For they had rejected my rules, disobeyed my laws, and desecrated my Sabbaths. Their hearts followed after their fetishes. Oh, you sick little bastards.
I
But I had
know.
pity on them and did not destroy them. I did not make an end of them in the wilderness. I warned their children in the wilderness, do not follow the practices of your fathers, do not keep their ways, and do not defile yourselves with their fetishes. I am Yahweh your God. Follow my laws and be careful to observe my rules, and sanctify my Sabbaths, that they may be a sign between me and you, that you may know that I, Yahweh, am your God.
So in other words, there's all
Whew.
kinds of other crap, but when it comes down to it, you want to be with me, Shabbat's the way, right? Yes,
Way to
be
go.
careful, observe my laws, but Shabbat's the way in, right? You want to be good, do Shabbat. That's the thing.
Damn.
And then it's got the rest is like, you guys sucked, but I was like, whatever, I still love you, and then
All right, fine. I'll
you're
save
fine,
you.
fine. And then it's like, I warned you guys, don't do this stuff, you know, it's
I
all
mean, it's not like
fetishy,
it was me who sent you out there into the wilderness
right?
anyway, but like,
Exactly. But hey,
let's
let's not blame me, okay?
not go there.
It's
Okay.
not like I put you in Egypt and took you out and put you in the world. Like all of this is up in the air. Who knows who did it?
Who knows
Um,
whose fault this
who
is,
knows
really?
who's to blame? But
It's
frankly, keep us
nebulous.
in is really what's important here.
Oh,
So okay, so it's just a little bit more about this, but this seems to be like in the underlying theme of the later text is it's the thing that bonds the people to Yahweh is Shabbat. Um, there's a um, there's a quote. I forget who said it, but it's as much as the people of Israel have kept Shabbat, Shabbat has kept the people of Israel, and so that quote really speaks to this in terms of, at the very least, as a Jew throughout the world, when it's Shabbat, you're there. That's a universal
Yeah.
Jewish language. Is like we do Shabbat. Like we'll invite you over for Shabbat. You can go to the temple. You're going to
Mm.
go to the synagogue. Like doesn't matter what language you speak. You do
It's
Shabbat.
that
You're one of us.
unifying thing. It's almost like
Exactly.
that romantic thing when you're just dating somebody and you're like, "Are you looking up at the moon? I'm looking up at the moon. Oh,
Right.
we're both looking up at the full moon together." It's like you're doing something
Yes,
like
but
an
not so
act that's
gross. It's
yeah.
it's also like, hey, Sleepless in Seattle is on. You put it on too, and we'll talk on the phone. It's on.
Right.
That sort of, hey, you do Shabbat too? I'm going to do Shabbat.
Yeah, that's really
Um,
cool. That's awesome.
yeah. So that's sort of the mess that is the reinvention of Shabbat in there. Um,
I think that's a good voice. I think that could
yeah.
work.
My cold dead heads. Moreover, I gave them the Sabbaths. I like it. Your translation does not say fetish. Chronicles of Lucifer. I'd be interested to see what it
Mhm.
says, but I trust the Hebrew and it is fetishy. Okay.
They wanted to
Um,
make sure it was poignant.
yeah,
That's a
Shabbat,
fetish,
it's everywhere
son.
you want to be. That's amazing. This is amazing. I
Fetish
love
man.
these one-liners y'all are having. This is
God
incredible.
doesn't take American Express. Shabbat.
No,
It's
Shabbat.
everywhere you want to be.
Right. Um, Dan had a question here that I saw pop up. So it was open to Gentiles before Jesus. Well, first thing is like lots of things happened before Jesus. Um, before Jesus took
My
credit for it.
mama.
Right.
Just just kidding. Sorry,
Right.
mom. I don't know why I said
It's
that.
it's fine. But everything that Jesus was doing, there wasn't a great deal that was in Second Temple, like first century Judaism. It's not particularly original. But to to talk about this kind of stuff in terms of open to Gentiles, yes and no, right? As for the ger, the foreigner, the stranger who decides to attach themselves to Yahweh, which means it's not a Gentile. It's probably an apostate or someone who's trying to convert or whatever that looked like back then. So um, it's not that we say like Shabbat is like everybody can do it, it's universal. It's like if you're interested in being on our
Everybody can
team,
do it.
right, exactly. It's specifically ours. It's our sign between like us and God. So if you want to do that, you can do that, but there's like a lot that comes with it also, like in that way. So not necessarily what Jesus was preaching, but but I understand where he got it from in terms of opening it up in that way. Um, okay, now
Paul opened that door.
here's the cool part. You guys ready? Here's the cool stuff.
Uh-oh.
And I love the way that I'm a visual
Up,
learner.
up,
Okay,
ah.
so we have clearly no consistent biblical origin of Shabbat, right? We have some second level adaptation, right? Of or not really a second level adaptation, a a group of ideas as to how we're going to rework a biblical origin of Shabbat, because we can see from all of these the fact that they all exist means that none of them were original, right? They all have different reasons and things like that. So what scholars sort of understand is that there was some other reason for Shabbat. And then when that happened, so like this, and we when we look at some of this stuff, by the way, it is super cool. Okay. But what happened was in the ancient Near East, when the Israelites are building, when these authors are building their religion, they're taking these things, as we've seen, and making them into our myths, right? Our mythology, our laws. We're going to adapt them. Now, it wasn't
As you
consistent,
do.
as you do.
As
There's
you
no,
do.
that's right. There's no like copyright laws or whatever it is back then.
No
He just
play
sort of took it.
back then, right?
Right. Um, and then we have so like these multiple ideas, which is super cool. And then within the Bible itself, within the Tanakh, there was no second move. There was no like, let's harmonize it. There was no textual thing of like dealing with this problem that it's right in your face. There was nothing that was done. Now, the rabbinical works later gave it a shot and things like that. But from a biblical point of view, it's still a mess. We have not harmonized the reading for Shabbat, the reason for Shabbat. Now, when we get into what Shabbat was beforehand from outside sources, super cool stuff. Okay. In Near Eastern legends, we know that on Saturdays there was something that was called Market Day. And on Market Day, everyone from all the tribes that were around and all the peoples would come together and sell their goods and buy stuff and intermingle, right? So we're talking Amorites and Hittites and Babylonians and Egyptians and Canaanites and Israelites. They're all hanging together in Market Day. And it just so happened that Saturday was Market Day, right? There's another idea that Thursdays and Saturdays were market days, but Saturday was like the main one. Okay. So then what did the Israelites authors, what's up? What did I miss? Oh, for God's sakes.
I remember that
Right.
song. Bop, shabbat. She bop, he bop. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I just have to pay attention. Otherwise, like I lose this great stuff.
Bop, shabbat. Now I'm gonna have that stuck in my head, and I'll probably say it out loud accidentally. People are gonna be like, "What is she doing?" Bop, shabbat.
This, by the way, is just brilliant. This is amazing. I don't know if you guys know what tefillin is. It's the stuff that you wrap around.
Oh, the wrap around.
Do your prayer.
Okay.
Yeah, to shibari, which is the sex rope. So fantastic, fantastic pipeline, Jason. Loving the connection from biblical fetish. Yeah, fantastic.
Hey.
Okay, I gotta get through this.
Focus. We gotta focus.
The idea, guys, is that if you are creating a new religion and you want to make it yours, your job is to stay home on Market Day. Get your people to stay home on Market Day. Why? Because if they're not out on Market Day, they're not intermingling, they're not intermarrying, they're not worshiping other gods. You are staying home, which means you particularly are the Israelites. Israelites stay home on Market Day. That is a possible reason for Shabbat, but then they had to give you a reason to stay home from Market Day because everybody's out on Market Day. So they had to make it, well, it's like God, or it's a good labor law, or it's a sign or a gesture. Like it needed to be sold in that way. But because of things like kashrut law, which we've seen, kosher laws to keep people away, there's all kinds of reasons in the Torah to separate the Israelites from the rest of everybody else. This is a possibility that Shabbat was a way to keep you away from all that stuff that was going on.
I see. Typical.
That's right.
You got to keep them
Typical.
separated.
Hey, we don't mind Shabbat. Okay. There was also also in the Near Eastern ideas of a non-Israelite cultures is that on Saturday is when demons and evil spirits come out.
Well,
And
that's where I
so,
go out.
right. I mean, now you can do whatever you want. Um, you know, demon and evil spirits come out and I go on dates, but, with them. But the,
Lovely.
yeah, I got some great stories. But the idea is that, nighttime demons and evil spirits would come out Friday night. Right. And so, in order to stay away from that, there was probably a non Israelite mythology that was there that we have, um, some proof of in terms of like poem and other things like that, that you have to stay indoors on that day, on that particular day. That's the demon day or whatever it is, or
Hmm.
demon night. Okay. So, you're already home because you're trying not to go out and do that. So, it is possible that it was already in place. The neighbors were doing it, and they were like, "Well, since we're already home, let's come up with our own reason why we're home. We don't do demons and evil spirits. We do it for this reason."
Mm.
And then finally, there's this Akkadian idea of um, that was like once a month, not necessarily once a week, but once a month was when you're supposed to do worship and liturgical activities. This was like a non-Israelite sort of Shabbat that they did, where like once a month they would get together and they do their worship together. And so the Israelites probably looked at that and they were like, "We can do that, but we can do it every week." So, it's
We're
ours
better
is
than you.
4 times as good, you know,
Right?
um,
You get four
you
times
know,
the fun.
exactly. So we're not sure which of the few influenced the need for the Israelite authors and Israelite leaders to create something out of it. We do know that they did create at least three reasons as to why the Israelites stay home on Friday night to Saturday night, right? To keep people away from each other so that you don't intermingle, so that you don't get, demon stuff, or because you saw our neighbors saying like they do this, we can do this. Let's do that also. But they needed to make it their own, which means they couldn't just say it's market day, stay away. They had to say, we're not going to work on this day because this is a sign between my God and me, right? So I'm not going to do any of that. Um, or it's not because there's demons and evil spirits, but because my God rested on Friday night. And so I'm going to rest on Friday night. So that reinvention, which we've seen so many times over in terms of um, looking at ancient Near Eastern rituals that have then been changed into something like that we use, right? We talked about um, apotropaic ritual objects, right? The mezuzah,
Right.
which hangs on your door,
Mm-hmm.
originally kept away bad spirits, right? The Hamsa kept away the evil eye.
Mm-hmm.
They were then repurposed with our text to say, no, this is why you put them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates, not because it keeps away evil spirits, but because of what I say it does. That's exactly what they're doing here for Shabbat.
Right.
The last thing I wanted to mention, which I think is super cool, and kind of, I don't know, relevant in a certain way, is that when you look at historical accounts, exactly.
That's what it
Listen,
was.
that's what it was. Keep them
Y'all
home,
are
dude.
partying.
Let me tell you, man. If you've
Yahweh's are
ever also,
partying now.
let me tell you, dude. Thursday night is a wild night in Israel. I have partied it up.
Oh,
Um,
really? Oh my
oh
gosh.
yeah.
Yahweh
Um,
getting litty.
they can't do it on Friday. So yeah.
Okay.
But
You can't like at all.
you
You
can't go
can't
out on Friday.
like you can't. Oh, so
Everything's
you can't.
closed. Everything's closed. So you have to party on
Oh,
Thursday, and that's it because their school starts on Sunday, which means you have Friday night, which is Shabbat.
right.
Saturday night is their Sunday night for us because they start school on Sunday. They go to school
Okay.
Sunday to Thursday. So Thursday night is when everybody goes clubbing.
I see.
Um,
Okay.
but yes, Savage Sabbath. Anyway, last bit here that I wanted to mention is that when you look at the mentions of Shabbat by name um, in sources, yes, there are Israelite sources and things that predate it, but the first non-Israelite sort of view of and mention of Shabbat, of the Israelite Sabbath, is from the Assyrian conquest, where Sargon II decides this is when I'm going to attack them because I know it's their Sabbath.
Oh, you
So it's this
bastard.
very cool, like you can actually look this up. You can look up Sargon II, Assyrian conquest in 712. He actually writes like this was their. I think they said like in Assyrian it's different. It's like Shabbatu or something like that. But like this is their rest day. So I'm going to come and kick Israel's ass on Shabbat because they're never going to expect it. So the first, like the earliest mention outside of religious documents of Shabbat is someone coming to attack us on Shabbat. I just think
Oh,
that's very,
lovely.
very, very, very us. I think that I think
That just kind of
that
solidifies your
just
start in history,
solidifies
just right
right.
there.
That's
Says a
the most
lot.
Jewish thing I've ever heard. Is
Or
that
the most
yeah?
Jewish
We've heard of
thing.
Shabbat. That's the day we're going to come kill you. Yeah, that's
Okay, that's
that's our
about
lot in
right.
life. Yeah, that's our lot in life. So yes.
Oh my goodness
Um,
gracious.
so yes. So the things we should take away from this basically is one, there is nothing consistent in the Bible about why we do Shabbat. The second is what does that mean in terms of creating a second level adaptation? There has never been anything official as to how to repurpose the Sabbath in one way. There's been rules about it. There's laws about here's what you can and can't do. But if you look at the resources that we have, it's all over the place in terms of why we celebrate Shabbat or observe Shabbat or remember Shabbat. And none of it, and it's just one of those things that nobody talks about. It's just, it's all there, Shamor V'Zachor, or whatever it is. But it's a real problem. It's a real, like, Shabbat is a big deal, not just for Jews, but Christians as well. The Sabbath is a big deal. And so, but we have no consistent origin story to it. And no one seems to be like, huh, that seems like a major issue. Um,
Yeah.
so that to me is one, we should research things like this, the unknowns origins, which I think is cool, that slide us over into why it was repurposed. But also we got to figure out how to package it and say, is it because God rested? Is it because we were free from slavery? Is it because business is good that way?
Right.
Um, you know, um,
It's
or,
the real
is
deal.
it tradition? Tradition. And that's enough sometimes. That's enough for people to be like, we've been doing
That's what it
this
is.
for 3,000 years. We're just going to keep on doing it.
Have you
Yeah.
ever I the only thing I ever really researched about the Sabbath was like this little tiny piece of supposedly I don't remember who it was. Was it Plutarch? I don't know. I don't know. One of these historians compared the Sabbath with the Bacchus
Oh,
celebration.
really?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I got that from
Yeah.
it's from Jewish Virtual Library. Like honestly, most of the sources
Yeah.
is usually Jewish that I look up just because I wanna go there first. Doesn't mean I believe everything, but I do try to suss stuff out there first and
No,
then kinda
that's a good
see if
source.
there's
That's a good starting
resources.
point. Jewish Virtual Library is a good little like Cliff
I
Notes
don't
sort of
think it
thing,
said
you know.
anything like, "Oh, this is what it is," but somebody said like, "Oh, their celebration of the Sabbath
Yeah,
seems like a wine Bacchus kind of, I don't know, whatever.
could be. And that is, again, we see these, we cannot believe for a second that the laws in the Torah were made in a vacuum, right? All of this stuff comes in and influences it. So if it's Bacchus and wine and stuff, if it's there's demons outside, if there's everybody else is out there, like all of that infuses together, and that's what we get. So, that's one of those things where if you were to ask me, Rabbi Mike, is it possible that, and I would stop you and say, yes, whatever you're going to say, yes, it's possible. Everything's possible, right? Some things are more likely than others, but yes, that is possible. That there was in the creation of the Jewish Shabbat or even the Israelite Shabbat, there was this Hellenistic influence of this particular ritual, right? And how to do that, right? Um, I mean, if you another thing that people really don't know, right? I mean, for Shabbat, right? If you're Jewish, you light the candles, you drink the wine, and you eat the challah bread, right? That's the big three things. What most people don't know is that the oil to light the candles, the grapes for the wine, and the wheat for the bread are the three major agricultural aspects of the ancient Near East:
Mm-hmm.
oil, vineyards, wheat. And
Yep.
so Shabbat's elements are also brought in from an agricultural idea. Now, they were repurposed,
Right.
right, to be holy and all this other stuff. But it wasn't made like no one just was like, what's good? Wine's good. Like it's not, what else do I have
Wine's
lying around here? You
hmm.
know, like, and some candles. Yeah. And the twisty bread,
Linen's good.
like,
Linen's good.
right, exactly. Linens everywhere, and it's not like that happens, right? It's everything is mushed together and repurposed. So the idea of the reinvention, the remix of it all is huge in terms of rituals. And this continues into right Second Temple world, into first century, and into other denominations and other stuff like that. So the idea of repurposing something and then just saying this is how it um, is not unique. But Shabbat is a great example as to where it came from, how it was built, and then the inconsistencies that people are just like, we'll pick one, or whatever it is. So
I like that
yeah,
one.
Egypt tonight.
Egypt sounds
So
good.
yeah,
Yeah, Egypt seems like a
Egypt sounds
lovely
good.
place. Hey, they used
Yeah,
Egypt quite often when they needed refuge. So, I mean, why not?
right.
It
That's what
must
I'm
have been
saying.
very important. So, might
Right.
as well throw it
There
in
we
there.
go. That's what I'm talking about. So yeah, that's what I've got for you guys tonight. The
That was great.
takeaway is Shabbat has no biblical origin that is consistent. So what does that mean to you? How are you going to do Shabbat? How are you going to do your Sabbath? If there's no consistent biblical origin, what does that mean to you in terms of how you acknowledge Shabbat? You have that ability to repurpose and follow the line of the original authors of the Torah and the Tanakh who did the same thing. So, as a rabbi, I'm giving you permission to repurpose for you what Shabbat is in the same tradition. Don't go crazy if you don't mind, but
No, I
keep
love
it within the
that.
book, but like
That's
we
awesome.
continue on in that tradition by making the Sabbath ours. And so that I think to me is the best thing you can take away.
I like that, making it your own. And
Yeah.
I think that is a truly beautiful thing that we can share with people. We can share the gift of learning how to understand and appreciate the Bible in a different light. We don't have to take it as it's inerrant, doesn't have to be the
Mm,
truth. We can see that it's just literature that tells so many different stories, and even this one we're not sure which one's which, but hey, it's still cool storytelling, and that's what's important.
Heck yeah.
Heck
Friends,
yeah.
thank you for your questions.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
for
you,
your awesome
everybody.
comments. And
Good for you.
you guys are awesome. And we will see you next week with Ryan, who's going to hit us with something rad. I'm excited about it. But yeah,
Who
thank you for your
knows?
attention. Who knows? We'll see. We'll hear about that on
I'll
Tuesday or
find something
something.
up my sleeve, something I'll be able to
There you go.
pull a rabbit out of
Um,
somewhere. Don't know where from,
do it.
but I'll do
And
it.
don't forget, the week after that is Thanksgiving. So if you want to make it some sort of Thanksgiving-y something,
Oh, that is right. Oh, that's a good
yeah,
little okay, let my little
yeah,
feelers
do
go out
it,
there
do
and
it.
see what I can figure out. Okay.
Yeah.
Love you guys. Thank you. That was a
All
great
right,
show
y'all.
tonight, Rabbi Mike. We appreciate it.
Good
And
night.
we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Same bad time, same bad
Bye.
channel. Peace
Thanks,
out.
guys.